As you heard, this is the last presentation, and yes, for now. So we're gonna get right into it, and at the end, I have a little treat for you, something I should have done from the start, but you got it here today. Today, we're gonna talk about something that's quite topical and relevant. Um, it's something that we've seen, across the world in every country that has become modernized and technologically advanced and would have changed their lifestyle to fit a more modern mold. We've seen that kind of shift go hand in hand with increasing of obesity rates. And so this is something that we think, based on research, is behind most of the chronic illnesses that we suffer today. So we're gonna dive a little bit into this topic today. We're gonna look at a few things, explain to you what obesity is, the impacts it has on our bodies, and definitely we're gonna look at what are the myths versus the truths, and also some of the root causes, and look at how we can go about fixing it. Most of what I'll say this evening you maybe would have heard, so we're going to be reinforcing. I'm going to try and make the presentation as short as possible so we can have more time at the end for interaction, because I still understand many persons have questions that they want to get answers. I want to reassure those of you who are waiting for online consultations that they will happen, even if I'm not here for the next few days, the next couple of weeks. One by one, two by two, we'll get them done. So don't worry, even though I'm gone, you'll still be able to reach me. And I'll be looking in on your services and your programs every now and then. So you'll hear from me every now and then. Now, obesity was maybe when you guys, many of you guys were kids, just having excess weight on your body. Now it has become classified as a disease by itself, because it comes with symptoms and complications, even if you have no other problems. So we found that this is a chronic, complex disease that is, as it says here, defined by having excess fat deposits that can cause health problems. And in some countries, the rates are alarming. Mexico, 70% of the population is overweight or obese. So about 30% of the persons in Mexico are normal weight. That's quite alarming. In Britain, the rates are quite similar to the US. 40% of the population is obese. In Jamaica, it's 20%, but we are climbing fast. There are many things that can result from you having excess weight on your body. So yes, it can result in you maybe looking a little better, looking a little more rounded in your clothes, and some persons find that quite desirable. But there are some downsides, and I've mentioned a few of them, but there are a few ones here that I haven't mentioned. At the top here we have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So having excess weight on your body also indicates that you may have excess weight around your organs, and the liver being one of them that is going to suffer significantly. You may have hormone imbalances, which I've mentioned briefly in previous presentations. This one is quite common among our younger populations. So women who are of childbearing age tend to, as a result of being overweight, have high insulin and have hormone imbalances leading to infertility, irregular periods, and the onset of diabetes. And if you have this condition, it causes you to gain weight, and the weight causes the condition to get worse. And so there's this vicious cycle that's set up where the disease propagates itself unending. There are brain alterations as a result of being overweight. So fat on your body isn't just sitting there, it's actually very metabolically active, producing hormones and chemicals that are bad for you. So it's not just storing the fat, it was what the fat does. There is a correlation between obesity and overweight and depression and anxiety. certainly there are going to be more joint, back, hip, and knee problems as a result. And diabetes is highly correlated with your weight. The more weight you have on, the more likely you are to have insulin resistance and thus develop diabetes. Of course, you would well know that obesity is one of the major contributors to heart attacks, strokes, hypertension. So there is that too. Um, High blood pressure is also correlated with obesity. Also is high cholesterol. And many of you may not know that there is an increased risk of gastrointestinal problems like acid reflux and IBS with obesity. Not that you have to be overweight or obese to have any of these things, but there is an increased risk. Yeah, so there are some myths that I want to dispel about your weight this evening. One of them is that people who are overweight eat too much, and that's not true. Majority of persons who are overweight will tell you, and they don't eat a whole lot more than most people on average. So the amount of food you eat doesn't often result in you being overweight. There are lots of other things that are probably far more important. And just eating less may not necessarily result in you losing weight. So you may be trying, and I know many persons who may be cutting down significantly and the weight just isn't going. So it's a little more complicated than just eating more. If you go to the gym, you'll find a lot of persons here who are overweight or obese who are exercising, and they work out for many weeks and months, and the weight loss just isn't happening, and they get frustrated and may stop and try something else because not exercising is not the main cause. So if you see somebody who has excess weight on, it's probably wrong to think in your mind that this person eats too much and doesn't move enough. As you'll see this evening, it's a little more complicated than that. There are some root causes for obesity that we're going to try to understand. And so, as we've said seminar long, we have to address underlying causes to really get to the root of the problem. So just cutting out what they eat and going to the gym may not be enough for the majority of persons to lose weight. All right, so here is one of excerpt from one of my favorite books, The Obesity Code, and Dr. Fung lists out the main causes of our obesity epidemic. And we are going to go through them one by one to help to understand why these things would result in you having excess weight. So the number one at the top, of course, has to be sugar, which we have mentioned that over and over again. I say already and I'll say again, sugar is the root of all evil as it concerns health. Sugar will, in its various forms, elevate your insulin levels, and that will cause you to store fat because insulin is the fat storage hormone. Sugar is also released when you consume refined carbohydrates. This concerns your refined flour, refined cornmeal, refined rice, in its various forms, breads, buns, bullets, wheats, and cakes, and so on. Even wheat, the modern types that we have, will cause an increase in sugar in your blood. In fact, all carbohydrates has the potential to cause insulin spikes, but not all are created equal. Some carbohydrates do it at an alarmingly faster rate, such as sugar and refined carbohydrates, while whole foods like potatoes and pumpkins and yams do that at a much slower rate. You must have carbohydrate in your diet, and so we're not advocating for all carbohydrates to be removed. We're advocating for you to eat the ones that will not cause a significant spike in your insulin, and thus your weight. So these 1, 2, 3, 4 represent the top causes of obesity. Yes, fat does contribute, but it comes way down on the list. If you have excessive amount of calories in fat, especially animal fat, it will contribute because fat in itself is inflammatory and that will drive some amount of weight gain. Red meat is correlated with being overweight. So red meat consumption, again, because of the inflammatory nature of red meat, if consumed in excess, will contribute to weight gain. All meats, in fact, will contribute to some weight gain. but they are far less important, and this is in the sense other than what we see at the top here. Dairy products also, modern types, refined dairy, homogenized dairy, will contribute to weight gain. Snacking is a contributor. Snacking, I know people who say, I don't eat much, and when you look at them eating at one meal, it's a little bit they have, but they're eating 6, 7 times a day, or they may have a normal breakfast, a normal lunch, a normal dinner, but they're having in between, bag of chips, which in their mind doesn't register as a meal. They may have in between a bar of Snickers, which may be over 300 calories, which in their mind doesn't register as a meal. And so the snacking in between meals does add up to the amount of calories you take in. Some persons have reward foods that they have, to treat themselves, and they, do so well in other areas of life. They treat themselves very often, sometimes every day. So that does contribute. There are persons who are addicted to particular foods, and when persons are addicted to food, sometimes they are a little, guarded about how they discuss that. And so, from a doctor's perspective, it doesn't come out in discussion. We have mentioned before that not getting enough sleep is going to contribute to your weight because, as I said, sleep causes you to be hungry more and be satisfied less because of the hormone changes that occur. It raises your ghrelin levels and lowers your leptin levels. And so getting enough sleep is definitely going to be an important part of your weight loss journey. So if you're exercising and doing all the right things and you're not getting enough sleep, that by itself may slow down your weight loss. Stress also raises your cortisol level. So I know many persons who eat very little. They have one good meal a day and have a little snack in the evening, and their weight just keeps going over proportion. They put on weight by just smelling food. And oftentimes, stress, chronic stress, may be the underlying factor. I'm sure you know persons who are stressed and lose weight, but the opposite is true in many instances. Fiber in your diet is very important because fiber, as you know, will contribute to the health of the bacteria in your gut. And those control your weight too. They control your appetite and control how your body metabolizes food. So if you have a diet that's low in fiber, you're going to be having less diversity in your gut bacteria, and that will contribute to weight. Genetics is a small contributor to weight gain, not a big contributor. So we're going on the line now. So oftentimes persons will say, I'm fat because my mom was fat, and my dad was fat, and my uncle was fat. So they say, being overweight runs in my family. When the truth is that nobody in the family runs. You guys are listening, all right? Attention. Yeah, poverty is a contributor to being overweight. Generally, people who are not well off tend to only be able to afford very low quality, high calorie, low fiber foods. So they tend to be the ones that would eat the flowers and the rice and the sweets, because those tend to be cheaper, while whole foods and healthy foods tend to be higher in price. And so if that's you, then you need to make some plans to not be poor anymore. Amen? All right, we serve a God who will bless us if we ask him. Many people, do not do better in life because they haven't set a goal to do better in life. Let me just break out a little bit here. As I spoke to you today, as Christians, we tend to think that, okay, money isn't important, and I don't need to try to get things of the world. But might I remind you that to get me here required money. To turn the lights on in here required money. To send your kids to school requires money. Yes, if you're sick and need medication, if you didn't, you may say in Britain that you have NHS, but it's your taxes that run the NHS. So it's not really free. It costs a lot of money, to love your kids properly, requires money to be a good husband or a good wife, to provide healthy means to take a vacation. So it is a part of being a good human being and a good person to plan your life in that direction. and to live healthy as you see in Britain to get the right foods. I've been told about the price of the Asian shops. They aren't necessarily cheap. I know Watford has a market that, may not be so expensive either. So you have choices, but many people have difficult choices to afford healthy food. It's something that you are going to have to spend to do. So it is in your interest. But being wealthy also can cause excessive weight too, because persons tend to have a lot more abundance available to them and tend to, make use of it. The gut bacteria, as I mentioned before, can be damaged by your diet. And incidentally, if you have a child who's overweight, that child is more likely, maybe 40% more likely to become an overweight or obese adult. So parents ought to take responsibility for their children's weight, because by what they eat and how they behave as a child, that will determine to a large extent how they behave as an adult. Once a child passes 18, there's not much behavior change that's going to be spontaneous. So, summarize what we just talked about. These are the main causes: insulin resistance, which is caused by sugar and carbohydrates in your diet; inflammation, which is caused by lots of carbohydrate, red meat, and the dairy products; medical conditions, which we didn't mention. These include things like low thyroid function, which is again a pandemic in Britain. Certain medications may cause it, including steroids for autoimmune disease, stress, and toxins in your food. This one's interesting. This one is in the early infancy of its research. We think that exposure to certain toxins over time cause what we call bioaccumulation. So if you eat foods that are loaded with preservatives and colorants and flavoring, which are artificial, these things will, some of them remain in your body and they're housed in your fat cells. The fat stores them there because your body can't get rid of them, and to not have them circulate in your blood, your fat, absorbs these fat-soluble toxins. And so when you try to lose weight, your body literally holds on to the fat because it doesn't want to release this toxin into the bloodstream. And some believe that doing a detox at the start of a weight loss program, which is what we've done, helps to flush out some of these toxins and make it easier for you to lose weight. So there's that theory that is gathering. And so in the true spirit of detox, we have here a detox recipe, which if you've seen it for the first time, please grab it, because you should have been on this already. So we have ingredients here that would have been designed and put together by God to get rid of toxins from your body. Aloe vera detox your intestinal tract. Your oranges, grapefruit, lemon, either of those, the seeds of those kill worms. Pineapples help to detox your kidneys and help to aid digestion. Garlic will kill all bacteria that are bad. Incidentally, yes, garlic kills bacteria, but it spares the good bacteria somehow and kills the bad one. It's amazing how it works. It's targeted, specific, and so it will preserve the good gut bacteria and kill the bad ones, especially yeast. And ginger, of course, will help to reduce gaseousness and improve digestion and so on. So this is something that helps to detox your entire bowel. Yes, this turmeric would have been one of the ingredients that I have been in and out of the detox. For you guys, it was in again. I found that maybe about 10% of persons who did the detox with turmeric didn't go to the toilet as much as they thought they would. And when I experimented and moved the turmeric, they went to the toilet a little more often. So if you're a person who did the detox and, okay, I didn't go out as much as I wanted to, maybe take the turmeric out and do it again. So that's why but turmeric has benefits for improving your liver detoxification. But that's something that I've found to be, that I played around with for some people. So we said lack of exercise is one reason why you may gain weight, but it's not the most effective weight loss strategy. Exercise for me, and let me put it in numbers for you. In order to lose 1 pound of fat, you need to burn about 3,500 calories. That's the amount of energy contained in 1 pound of fat. If you go to the gym and walk on a treadmill for an hour, you might burn about 200, 300 calories. So you're going to have to walk on the treadmill 10 days to lose 1 pound. Okay? So if you're trying to get fat off your body with exercise is very slow and inefficient. So why should you exercise then if it's so inefficient and slow? Well, there are lots of other benefits for exercise. So one, it's what I call your insurance policy against weight gain. So it actually helps to build your muscle and raise your metabolic rate. So when you've lost the weight, you're less likely to put it on back because your metabolic rate is higher, so you burn fat more efficiently, or much faster, sorry. Two, it is what helps your body to be toned. So when you've lost the weight, you don't have sagging and you actually look better. Yes? Exercise actually is what raises your mood. So you might be on this weight loss program or diet and so on, and it's a little different from what you were used to. You're no longer getting the dopamine hit from your sugar and from your dairy products and from your sweets, so you're feeling a little deprived. Exercise replaces that. Exercise causes release of endorphins and dopamine, so you get literally a high. So it helps to motivate you. You feel more confident, you feel better. So exercise serves those purposes. But for weight loss by itself, it's not very efficient. You have to combine your exercise with dieting. All right, did speak to sleep and relaxation. And here is something that I wanted to get into a little bit. So we've done research and found that people who have obesity have less diversity in their gut microbiome. What it means is that in the average person, you might have about 1,000 different species of bacteria in your gut. So the 10 trillion is made up of, the 100 trillion made up of about 1,000 different species, right? So you may have, a billion of each species, or 10 billion of each species to make up the 100 billion, or the 100 trillion rather. So persons who are obese, we find have less number of species, and the amount that you have, the diversity, seems to be correlated with your health and with your weight. So the less number of species you have, or less kinds of bacteria you have, the more likely you are to be overweight or obese. And we found that things like excessive use of antibiotics decreases your diversity in your bowel. Having lots of sugar decreases diversity. Having insufficient fiber in your diet decreases diversity. And these things will contribute to making you overweight, because the diversity will fuel your body with the kind of enzymes and signals and molecules to make your metabolic rate normal. How do you increase diversity? Having the right foods and increase in your intake of what we call probiotic foods. The fermented foods that we talked about, and of course, possibly taking probiotics. Yeah, so we did mention these already. So there are some hormones that your body uses. So cortisol is an essential hormone in your body. It's made by your adrenal gland, and you have a rush of cortisol into your body each morning when you wake up. And that's what wakes you up and gives you energy for the day. But as the day winds on, the cortisol level begins to drop off. And as it drops off, another hormone called melatonin rises, and that puts you to sleep. But if you're stressed, chronically stressed, then your cortisol level doesn't go down. It remains high, and so you have difficulty sleeping because it's blocking the impact of the melatonin and blocking your circadian rhythm. So stress will prevent you from sleeping. But as it concerns your weight, cortisol will cause lots of fat accumulation around your midsection, because cortisol releases sugar into the blood, which then would raise your insulin and causes fat accumulation. Cortisol literally converts your muscle to fat. So cortisol breaks down your muscles, so your arms become thin and your legs become thin and weak. You have fat around the tummy. So chronic stress will cause high cortisol. There is a condition called Cushing syndrome, which is kind of rare. It's an extreme form of high cortisol, and exactly what I described is what we see in those patients. Again, your thyroid is an important gland in your body, and it produces a hormone. It's in your neck. It produces a hormone called thyroxine. And that's what we say give your body drive. It controls your metabolic rate, helps you produce energy, controls your heart rate. So this is what determines how fast your body can burn fat and produce energy. If it's low, then you're going to have problems. It's one of the major causes of weight gain. If you have low thyroid, which many women in their 40s and 50s have, you're going to get up each morning with brain fog. You get up not feeling so perky, feeling a little under the weather. Not sure why. You slept, but you didn't feel so rested. You try to do things physically demanding, and you find you don't have as much energy as you did before. You are, just not feeling yourself. Mental tasks become challenging. Your rate of calculation, your reasoning is underwhelming compared to what you know of yourself. And you might find that you are just putting on weight. Your skin may become dry. You may find that, yes, it's chilly, but I'm feeling excessively cold compared to everybody else. These are some symptoms that suggest that you may have low thyroid. Your hair may start becoming thin. And occasionally you may see a little bulging at the neck. These are symptoms of hypothyroidism, and it requires treatment. It is treatable, and many people go through life for 20, 30 years instead of being here, functioning way down here, and thinking, I'm just tired, I need some vitamins. Get your blood checked. High leptin is caused by a number of things, including leptin is a hormone that makes you feel satiated. So there should be low leptin. So if your leptin levels are low, then you find that you don't get satisfied from eating. You eat and you want to eat more. And would you guess that the makers of foods engineer chemicals into the food to manipulate your body's ability to recognize leptin, so you don't feel full when you eat? So you could, if you try to eat maybe a dozen oranges, you'll find that after the first 4 or 5, you're kind of had enough oranges. It's very hard to eat a dozen oranges, but try to eat a dozen donuts. Some kids could get rid of that in no time and maybe want more, because it doesn't allow you to have that feeling of satiety when you eat it. Happy to hear about your book club. These are some top recommendations for your health book club. I'm definitely intending to be part of a book club from afar, make recommendations, because I've read a number of books on health. And these are some books. This one in particular, Good Fat, Bad Fat, by Dr. Arumi, is a book that tells us exactly what kind of fat, because we tend to think of fat as being something that's bad, something that makes you fat. That's how we've been schooled in the 70s and 80s. But now we find out that not all fat are created equal. And one of my favorite foods, avocado, is loaded with fats. So is coconut, loaded with fats. And these foods are healthy and help to maintain a normal metabolic rate and maintain normal body weight if you eat them in large amounts. So these are some top books that you could read from and get excellent recommendations. And of course, some others here that you would need to read and understand. These books are loaded with information. This book is very old, not as old as these ones, not as old as this one, but nonetheless an old book, which has a treasure trove of herbal remedies and protocols for different diseases. So, back in the day when I was a boy, every household should have had one of these. Not so popular anymore. How many of you know this book? Okay, all right. I know the book. All right. Yeah, so what to eat. We're just going to run through this quickly, because we've been here before over and over again. Your body needs essential minerals and nutrients to survive. If you have these in your diet every single day, your hunger will be reduced and you'll feel full all the time, and you will find that making healthier choices is easier. You feel hungry many times not because you didn't eat, but because you lack essential nutrients. So if you ate a big bowl of food and your food didn't have for example, enough magnesium or enough omega-3, and you do that week after week, you find that this bowl of food doesn't keep you full. And after eating, half an hour later, you're hungry again, because your body, despite getting 800, 900 calories, did not get the nutrients that were required. So having a meal that supplies all your nutrients every time is essential, so you don't get hungry and you don't have the need to be eating between meals. The need to be eating between meals oftentimes is because of bad habit one and because of insufficient nutrients in your previous meal. So you feel your body is calling, I want some magnesium, I want some potassium, I want some zinc, but you interpret that as hunger, and so you eat again. So we've seen these same pictures. These foods, when you eat a variety of foods, simply prepared, not too excessive with too much seasoning and too much oil and too much frying, simply prepared in a wholesome, attractive manner, that will supply your body with the nutrients it needs. And so you've seen all of these pictures before, so I'm just going to skip through them, and they will be on the challenge. All right, so eat healthy foods, have no sugar, have no grains, and we've done fasting before, so I'm going to leave a lot of time to questioning. Fasting is, as we have said, an ancient remedy that is going to be very important in your weight loss journey. And fasting is not to be feared. And don't know how many of you were able to do fasting up to today. Let me see the hands of those of you who did from fasting up to today and had break on your fast at lunchtime. I say 1, okay, 2, okay, excellent. All right. So some person did the fast and broke it today at lunchtime. Some persons are still fasting, but it's something that you want to try to incorporate into your habits regularly. Fasting does not make you lose muscle, which is something that you might think will happen. No, stress makes you lose muscle. Not exercising makes you lose muscle. Your brain needs glucose. Your body can make the glucose your brain, but your brain can run on ketone bodies, and excellently too. You will die of hunger. Yes, if you're living in a country that people are consuming 500 calories a day, and even Gaza, people are still able to survive on less than that for a long period of time. Malnourished, it's unlikely to become malnourished from doing a few days of fasting. Fasting, however, should be done by persons who are typically healthy and have been well nourished. You don't want to do doing fasting when you're low on nutrients. And your blood sugar will be regulated by your body. Your body will not your blood sugar too low. This is going to be controlled by your cortisol levels again, and this will help you to maintain normal blood chemistry even during fasting. You can do intermittent fasting, which is very important. I did put in the group a couple of videos about this and how we have found this to be very important for weight loss. Intermittent fasting is where you eat for a short portion of the day and you fast for the majority of the day. So I like to do a 6/18-hour intermittent fast. So your 2 meals are within a 6-hour span. And that would allow your body to burn through the calories here over the next 12 hours. So come about here, you will have burned through all your calories. So you will have 6 hours left where you have no choice but to burn your body fat because you've run out of calories. Now, if you had eaten here and eaten down here again, then your body takes 12 hours to burn through these calories, and then calories come again. It burns through the calories after 12 hours, and so you'd never get into your fat stores. So eating the same amount of food in 6 hours as opposed to over 12-hour span. So many of us have breakfast in the morning at 8, and by evening time 8, we're probably still eating. That's not going to help with weight loss. The same amount of calories, the same 2 meals, eaten in a shorter period of time is more likely to lead to weight loss. So it's not about the amount, it's the timing of your meals. And as we said, it's the constituents of your meals. So lots of carbohydrate and sugar will cause weight gain as opposed to fat and protein, which doesn't trigger as much insulin. A 24-hour fast is going to be excellent because you're going to be having 24 hours almost of fat burning. And you may do longer fast to ensure that you get to your fat burning goal. I've been through these already. So let's get to the last and most important slide. Well, this one, this Ozempic and other weight loss drugs are very popular now, and people are using them to lose weight. There is an upside and there's a downside. Upside is that, yes, they will help with your weight loss. They help to control appetite so you don't feel as hungry. And so over a period of a year, the average weight loss is about maybe 12 kgs from Ozempic, 24 pounds in a period of a year, which we see that a lot in a month on the 14-day challenge anyway. The downside with this is that they're expensive, one, And two, you actually lose not just fat but muscle mass. So when you're finished with your Ozempic program, you're gonna be having a lower metabolic rate and more likely to put back weight on. So there is a downside. Um, you've been asking about sugar. I know many of you would have been loving your sweet taste in all your food. Here are some sugar substitutes, and raw honey, 1 tablespoon, contains 64 calories, so it's not a benign sweetener. Of all the sugars that you see here, raw honey comes in at number 2 in terms of the amount of calories, or if your honey is used in excess, it will contribute to weight gain. Dates, very high in calories, again, so if you're going to be using these, then you want to use them very minimally. If you're diabetic or trying to lose weight, avoiding them may be important. Stevia, a monk fruit, are 0 calorie sweeteners. So stevia might be acceptable to an extent, but what you want to do is to get yourself not addicted to the sweet taste. So the more sweets you have, so when you have a lot of stevia in your diet, it makes you more addicted to sweets. And so when nobody's looking, you're more likely to dip into the honey jar. All right, so it's much harder for you to resist sugar when you keep reinforcing the dopamine response that you get from sugar. And so there are other sugars, and you can see all of these are going to have calories as opposed to sugar, which would come in at about 100. So they are not benign. Yeah, so here's a treat for you.